Hi and welcome. In this video today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the subject of what is actually creating the experiences that we have in our everyday lives, and more specifically, what is the cause of the not so pleasant experiences that we keep finding ourselves into over and over again. And usually, when we have a not so favorable experience, either this is with another person or in general in a situation that we find ourselves, we tend to shift the attention externally to either the person or the situation. And we say to ourselves that we experience those emotions because that person did something and because that happened, that it is because of what happens around us that we experience those negative emotions. And what is happening in reality is that basically at that moment, what we choose to tell ourselves about the situation or the person is what is dictating our experience and how we feel. And let's see a couple of examples here. Let's say that you had an argument with a friend and you feel very upset afterwards, and all you keep thinking is that their behavior has affected you and that you feel in a certain way because of what they did, or because of what they said, or because of what they didn't do. So you believe that the cause of your problem is that person's behavior, when if you pause and take a moment, you will discover that you said something to yourself about that person and their behavior, that this is the reason why you are experiencing those negative emotions. So let's say that because of that argument, you told yourself that that person doesn't care about you and therefore that's why they said what they said. So you are choosing to put an interpretation to that person's behavior, and then you feel upset because you're saying to yourself that they don't care. So we see that it's not about their behavior as itself in isolation, but it's rather what it is that you were saying to yourself about them. Or another situation, let's say that you are delayed and you missed your flight, and then you might be feeling very frustrated, not necessarily because you are delayed to go to your destination, but because you are saying to yourself things like, I'm such a mess and I always ruin things and it's my fault and I should feel bad about it because I'm not good at organizing or whatever it is. But again, it's what you are telling yourself in that moment, that this is what is dictating how you feel, and therefore this is dictating your experience. So where does this inner dialogue and those thoughts come from? They were established in our subconscious in the past, because from ages of basically when we are born, when we come into this life, and especially until 7 years old, is where our subconscious minds get the most deep programming from what is happening around us. So whatever experiences you had at those ages when you were a child are bound to have contributed into the basis of your subconscious thinking, and then this acts as a place of information that we act from subconsciously, and it's even harder for us to recognize it and realize it when we are adults, even because it happens very much at the back and it just comes out when we are triggered, usually through a situation. So when we are at those ages of 0 to 7, our brains haven't yet developed their critical thinking or their justification abilities. So whatever happens is taken in a very simplistic way. So for example, a child cannot understand if what is happening is right or wrong, or if it's against its values or its needs or wants. So it's very easy for the child to come into black and white conclusions and way of thinking purely because they cannot understand something objectively. And for example, when something happens, the child will possibly think that, oh, what has happened must mean that I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy enough. And because the child depends on the adults around them for survival, it's much harder for the child to actually understand or even believe that the adult in this scenario has maybe some issues of their own, and this behavior is caused because they depend on that person to care for them. So they wouldn't blame the parent necessarily. So it's easier for the child and the child's thinking to take it in and accuse themselves. And this then forms the basis of the subconscious. So then when the child becomes an adult, what happens is that the adult is being triggered through situations. So when you find yourself sometimes in an uncontrollable emotion, it's usually that hurt child inside of you that, because they never dealt with whatever had caused that emotion, is now reacting in that way to that external environment. So essentially these behaviors are coming straight from our subconscious when we are triggered. And the reason that this happens is that we get to release that energy and to observe what is happening within us so that we get to resolve it and heal it, while we see that actually it has little to do with the external factors. So it has little to do with what the other person said or the experience that we had, because all of these external factors are basically acting as a mirror to us and how we feel. So therefore we attract the situations and the people who will be an energetic match to our unprocessed emotions that we haven't yet released. And the reason why this happens is because this child within us needs to be heard and it needs to be witnessed. And it's essentially calling us to observe what is the pattern that we have been carrying with us since childhood and is actually affecting our relationships in the present and our life in general. We can use those situations that we are feeling triggered as great opportunities to expand our awareness and to observe those patterns, as if we didn't have them being reflected through the external environment, it would be harder for us to notice them because they would be kept suppressed within us. So having this projection on to others or the external situations is actually a great way to help us observe the movie and see, okay, there I am feeling like that when this person is behaving in that way, or I find myself experiencing those emotions whenever I'm placed in this situation. So especially when it's something that is happening over and over again, is even a stronger indicator that there is a pattern that we carry within us from the past, and that through observing the situation we can understand it more and therefore let it go. And the point here is to try and understand that inner child of ours that is being triggered, and to love it and accept it and actually fulfill their needs, because that's why they're trying to grab our attention, because they have needs that are not being fulfilled. So we can do that for them, and we can be their parent and help them so that they feel safe and loved with us. And therefore, by doing that, whenever we notice our patterns being projected through the external environment, we can help them change the meaning that they give into certain circumstances that they feel triggered by. And by doing that, we will be attracting different experiences altogether, because once the trigger is removed, there is no reason for us to attract the same situations. And even if sometimes we do, there will not be a match, so they will drop very easily and we will not be triggered, so it will not go anywhere. So instead of feeling a victim of our circumstances or blaming the people around us or the situations themselves, by observing our reactions and what patterns are there, and tending to the needs of our inner child that wants something from us through those situations, we also change the experiences that we have in our everyday life. Thank you for watching this video, and see you soon.